Last gen provided a feast of great games to play, but there's quite a few which slipped under the radar, but with backwards compatibility and some being upgraded with enhancements and frames per second boost, now is the time to check out some awesome Xbox One games you can play on your Xbox Series X and S that you may have missed. There's something here for everyone, there's diversity amongst these games, and they're all worth playing, and they cross a number of genres, and some are just graphically beautiful, whether that be in their realism or artistic and visual design. Most are cheaper than full price as well. Some are on Game Pass and one or two are free, but like always, hit the thumbs up, share the video, subscribe and leave a comment, and all these things really help the videos and the channel. Please hit the link in the description to join up to the Discord to talk everything Xbox and gaming, but now let's get stuck in. So let's start with a free game at number 10, and it's Dauntless. I never even knew this game existed until a couple of months ago, and as you can tell from the footage, that leans on the fantasy / stylized look of graphics compared to those going for a realistic look. But the best way to explain Dauntless is pretty simple. Think Monster Hunter World, but now make it much simpler and accessible to get into it, but also lacking some of the depth that Monster Hunter World has. But it's also faster and maybe more fun for some players. The environments you visit can be a bit barren sometimes, which goes with lacking some complexity of a Monster Hunter series. As I mentioned, it's free to play, so it's easy to check it out to see if you'll like it, and you can bypass all of the microtransactions as well if you don't wish to spend any money, and these are mostly cosmetic from what I've seen. So if you want to throw a couple of bucks at the developers if it gives you a number of hours of enjoyment of monster slaying action, then so be it. It also runs well on the Series X for those playing there. Next at number 9 we have the over-the-top Bulletstorm, and if you're into C-grade stories, characters with almost no depth but action which is fast, responsive and has a few gameplay tricks that can make it quite addictive, then this game is for you. And I enjoyed the hell out of this back on the Xbox 360, but the remaster for Xbox One just takes that and cleans up the visuals and performance, so it's just a better version of what came before. There's some good action sequences which you get to take part in, and the levels are just filled with enemies that are just fun to kill, and the action never really gets old, and that's because of the leash that your character gets to use, and the environmental objects that you can use to kill enemies to earn more points and then spend those on upgrading your weapons. Mowing down one enemy while you pull another towards you only to hurl them into an electrical field or spikes, running towards another and kicking him only for him to enter bullet time as you just empty a metric ton of bullets into him is just awesome. Bulletstorm is one of those under the radar games, ones that also get forgotten, but when you think back, you remember it's just a hell of a lot of fun, and isn't that the most important thing? It's a great game. For number 8 we enter the Animus once again with Assassin's Creed Rogue, and this is one which also passed me by. A long-time Assassin's Creed fan, and this is generally the same reason as it was for everyone when it released back in late 2014. And that reason is that it was an Xbox 360 and PS3 title. At a time when their successors, the Xbox One and PS4, were in full swing and somewhat enjoying their own Assassin's Creed game with Assassin's Creed Unity. And that's one game I want to revisit in a later video, but Rogue launched on last gen systems and was, well, just kind of forgotten about. Now the Assassin's Creed franchise has gone through multiple changes over the years for both better and worse. But if you were one who enjoyed the hell out of Black Flag and even Assassin's Creed 3, then you should definitely check out Rogue. It's similar in structure to those other titles and has you sailing your ship with its crew as you can engage in naval combat by taking out the enemy ships and sinking them, or choosing to board and loot them as well. Now for those who don't know already, I like these sorts of Assassin's Creed games, as well as the new ones, but I do prefer the older games in the franchise, and I have a soft spot for the Animus being included in the games as well. It's just never really been done that well, but if you're after an Assassin's Creed game that mixes the old with the new, then check this out, and it looks and performs much better than it ever did last gen. A much cleaner image, especially if playing on One X. It's just a shame that the original 30 frames per second target couldn't get increased. Next at number 7 we have Code Vein, and if you're after some difficulty in your games and have a soft spot for the Dark Souls series, then definitely check this out, and that goes double for those who love the anime art style, but this goes one step further, especially when playing on the Series X or S, as Code Vein can really just look damn amazing at times, and it was quite surprising to me in just how good it does look. You'll begin your action RPG adventure in more enclosed, dark environments, moving through cave-like corridors as you get familiar with the game controls and everything that it has in terms of items, different builds, and all the rest. And honestly, Maybe I was a little tired at the time I started this, but I felt like I was bombarded with information tutorials right from the start, in which I would have preferred them being spread out a little more. But anyway, once you leave the more starting areas and the world opens up, plus the hub-like space of the mansion, Code Vein just looks stunning at times. From its smooth 60 frames a second through to the art style and lighting, it all comes together and delivers a more anime feast for the eyes. Gameplay is fun and fast, and with a good amount of weapon variety and builds, things are kept fresh for many hours. I wouldn't say it's quite at the Dark Souls level in terms of difficulty, but for those who have played those games, you'll slot right into Code Vein. Check this one out. At number 6 is the first in the Dishonored franchise, and the sequel did expand on several areas over the first game, including having 2 playable characters, and each of these games should be played as they're dead set quality, especially if you're into stealth. Plus it has a great visual design which just looks fantastic, and this just needs to be savoured now as it runs at a smooth and much better 60 frames a second thanks to the FPS boost. The story and to a lesser extent the characters are quite good, but I like Dishonored much more for its setting and the variety that comes with its gameplay, and I'm sure I've mentioned this in previous videos, but if you're into the Deus Ex series and don't mind the very different look and feel of Dishonored, then this series can even one-up the franchise starring Adam Jensen at times. Taking it slow and scoping out where the enemies are and how the environment is laid out, the level design has always been excellent in this series, and that only continued with the sequel and some truly impressive things going on. If you're after slower paced games and enjoy the single player experiences, then check this out as it performs great and the series is on Game Pass. Coming in at number 5, we have What Remains of Edith Finch, and I always let it be known with these sorts of games that it is a walking simulator, so if you're more into action and fast-paced gameplay, then this isn't really for you, as there isn't a huge amount of gameplay here, but this is all about the setting and the story and just the mystery surrounding everything. And this description is also true for another game on the list which I'll get to. You play as Edith, who returns to her family's home, and whereby you visit the different rooms in the house to find out how each of your relatives died. This is from what is believed to be a curse which kills all members of the family except one each generation. Now of course, that sort of setup for a game is quite morbid, but it's also something that should be experienced if you enjoy these slower paced games, even a little bit, as the way the game plays out and is presented is just really well done. And I wouldn't be surprised that this will be one experience that sticks with many of you for a long time to come. Exploring the house and its surroundings as you slowly learn about the lives and eventual death of Edith's relatives, it's just interesting, and you can complete the game in one sitting as it's only a few hours long. It's very well done and beautifully presented. For number 4, it's the underrated Vampyr, and this is one of those AA titles that often gets forgotten about pretty quickly, but for those that really like it, they will bring it up often. And then hopefully even more gamers check it out, and I'm in this group as well. I find Vampyr just really enjoyable overall, even with its small amount of jank that it has, but this action slash RPG just comes together to be just on the verge of being something really special. The combat system isn't too deep, but it is fun when you combine the melee weapons alongside the firearms and more paranormal abilities as well. And this also goes hand in hand with being able to level up your character and becoming stronger and improving your abilities and upgrading your weapons. Being a vampire, you can suck the blood of other living beings, which level you up, but Vampyr also succeeds in its story, which is set in London during the Spanish flu, and the characters are decent, nothing amazing, but I did like them along with our main character, plus the voice acting which goes along with them. But what I really like here especially was the setting, where it's 1918 after the First World War and everything is dark and rainy, with mood lighting as you make your way through the outdoor environments. With the game being set constantly at night and in the dark, Vampyr is just one of those great AA gems. At number 3 is the often forgotten Mad Max, and this was an example of a game which seemed to slip through the cracks as well. But when it comes to doing justice to the source material and just being a hell of a lot of fun, then Mad Max delivers on both fronts and then some. It's a beautiful, desolate and almost empty open world, and it's fantastic because of all these things, where the emptiness most definitely works in its favour. Driving your shoddy vehicle around, which has been slapped together from a mishmash of parts, is excellent, plus all of the upgrades which you can do. And that's on top of the engaging story and characters, all of which are voiced really well. The combat system is enjoyable and you feel the hits, kicks and knees as you dish out the pain as much as you receive it. Mad Max isn't the most popular franchise out there, and even though it had a movie release in the same year back in 2015, but in more recent years it seems more and more people are discovering this gem just like myself. Even if you may have open world fatigue, it's worth checking this out, especially if you can grab it on sale. Avalanche Studios did a great job with this. For number 2, it's The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, and this is one game which was totally new to me up until only recently, and it's just an absolute gem of a game in many ways, and the first way that you'll definitely notice is in the visual department, as especially if you're playing this on the Series X, then this is jaw-droppingly gorgeous at times, and it runs at a full 4K and 60 frames a second. It's stunningly beautiful, but the whole world and the mystery that surrounds the story in this other walking simulator on the list, it's just so well crafted. And it's just a special game, and it begins with the setting and carries through the puzzles that you'll solve as you piece the mysteries together. You can tell from the footage that this is a slow burn, just like What Remains of Edith Finch or Firewatch. If this sort of game appeals to you in any way, then you are in for something great, and if it doesn't, check it out anyway, even if it's just for the graphics and performance if you're playing on the Series X especially. And for number 1, I'm going with Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, and one of the best things about running this channel and making these videos is that I play many different games and I go out of my way to play ones which I skipped. Ones that didn't interest me much, or ones like Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen that passed me by because I just was focused on other games at the time. But it's the best kind of experience I never knew I wanted. Dragon's Dogma is part Skyrim, part Dark Souls, and a whole lot of awesomeness. And if you are after an RPG with a healthy dose of combat or magic, then definitely check this game out. I played as a fighter, and the combat has this nice weight and force with it, which I really enjoyed the more I played. In terms of graphics and performance, then expect an upgraded version of the original Xbox 360 game, but I wouldn't say it's especially impressive, even for an Xbox One game. Its foundation is definitely grounded a decade ago, but it has heart, charm, and where it counts the most in terms of a single player RPG, in the gameplay, the story, and depth. And that's without getting into the pawn system with your companions, how you can climb large enemies during combat, or how adventuring at night is a whole other level of tension and difficulty. Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen is a fantastic, underrated, and probably something you skipped over as well. Just give it some time if you're an RPG fan and find out why this is a must play. So there's some excellent Xbox One backwards compatible games that are definitely worth checking out. There's diversity here, but each offers something different and something that should appeal to you. But even if something isn't for you, take a chance in this awesome pastime we call gaming. But thanks for watching the video. Please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and leave a comment telling me which ones you have played or that you want to play. Check the description for a link to the Discord to discuss everything Xbox and gaming, and I'll see you on the next video.